A guy who's down on his luck, 7 wishes, a deal with the devil. All of them can only mean one thing. We're comparing Bedazzled on this episode of Retro vs. Remake.
My name is Reggie Parker.
And I'm Dan Bulick, and welcome to another episode of
Retro versus Remake.
Okay, so on this episode of Retro vs. Remake, we are discussing Bedazzled. So let's get right into it. The original Bedazzled was made in 1967. It's starring Peter Cook, Dudley Moore, Eleanor Braun, and Raquel Welch. Directed by Stanley Donen. Not too familiar with anything he's done, but the screenplay is by Peter Cook, our actor who plays the devil, and the music is by Dudley Moore, our protagonist. And then Bedazzled in 2000, starring Brendan Fraser, Liz Hurley, Francis O'Connor, Orlando Jones, Paul Adelstein, and Tommy Huss. Directed by Harold Ramis. Screenplay. Even though it's a remake, we have 3 screenwriters here. Larry Gelbart, Harold Ramis, and Peter Tolan. And music by David Newman. Let's get into it. What are your experiences with these films?
I have more experience with the remake. Obviously, I think we're all alive during that era where, for some reason, Brendan Fraser was one of the hottest Hollywood actors out there. He acted with mummies. He acted with Looney Tunes at points. And I remember in this movie because he acted with a hot chick. So, yeah, I remember being a Brendan Fraser fan. And I was looking forward to revisiting the source material. The original, no prior experience. This is the first time watching it.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat too. I've seen the remake. I didn't see it in theaters. I definitely I rented it from Blockbuster. And I wasn't a Brendan Fraser fan. I was more in it for the Liz Hurley thing, right? Because I just remember the commercial. She had like all these outfits on, and it's like, oh, she looks pretty good in that. And, you know, she's kind of still riding that Austin Powers wave. It's like, okay, Liz Hurley, let's see what she's doing. A little comedy there. Got Brendan Fraser, Harold Ramis, great director there. So,
Absolutely.
What can they do wrong? I had never seen the original until doing it for this podcast.
Yeah, you're right. Liz Hurley, that was a time.
Oh yeah. Anyways, these movies are actually pretty similar. I expected them to be a little bit more different, but they have a lot of similarities. So let's get into those differences. But before that, let's go over a synopsis. Now, this is one of those movies where all the characters have different names, so I had to use kind of general pronouns. So bear with me. Here we go. We start with our protagonist. He's a bit of a loser and no good with the ladies. He's in love with a woman that he works with, but he can't even talk to her. He would give anything to be with her. Enter the devil. The devil is charming, friendly, and sympathetic towards the protagonist's plight. The protagonist then signs a contract for 7 wishes. The price? Their soul. The protagonist dives right into the wishes. They always seem to be good at first, but there's always a loophole that prevents him from actually getting the girl. Wishes vary from being rich to highly intelligent and even famous, but none of them pan out right. And it turns out the protagonist only gets 6 wishes, as a wish was used earlier before signing the contract for the devil to prove who they were. After many wishes and not getting the girl, our protagonist seems doomed. But for bizarre reasons / loopholes in each movie, the protagonist is allowed to keep their soul. After the deal with the devil is over, the protagonist decides to finally approach this female co-worker and ask her out. She ultimately says no. And then both movies end their own respective way. Alright, so that's just a very broad synopsis. It's a pretty simple story. Guy makes a deal with the devil, gets a bunch of wishes, nothing turns out right, and somehow he gets to keep his soul. It's a pretty simple story. So where do you want to start with these differences? Maybe the cast?
Yeah, let's start with the cast. You know, the original film has obviously a British flair to it. 2 great actors, honestly, Peter Cook and Dudley Moore. I'm more familiar with Dudley Moore's work than Peter Cook.
Well, there you go, case in point. Yeah, I don't know Peter Cook from too much. I looked up his filmography. The only movie I recognized him, he was the priest in Princess Bride. That's the only thing I really recognized him in. I'm not too familiar with anything else he's done.
Dudley Moore, you know, we we've seen quite a bit of his films. At some point, we'll probably do another one of his movies, Arthur.
Arthur, yeah,
Yeah,
that's what I was thinking
yeah.
too. Now, I was a huge Dudley Moore fan when I was a kid because I used to watch the Santa Claus movie
Nice.
all the fucking time. Like every night I watched that movie, and he was the Patches, the number one elf. So yeah, Dudley Moore, I guess, has a special place in my heart because I used to watch that Santa Claus movie all the time.
And I know we got into it a little bit, but Brendan Fraser, who, in my opinion, is the king of acting when there's nothing else around. Like he's done so much CGI work in his career. He must have talked to so many tennis balls next to a green screen. Um, and then Liz Hurley, who I mean, just she was for a time, and honestly, to this day, possibly still one of the hottest actresses gracing the screen. So there was a time where she was, without a doubt, the number one actress when it came to looks. And this movie gives her a chance to show off her actual acting chops. In
Yeah,
my opinion.
yeah, she gets to have fun here. Show off more of her comedic side and stuff. So it's pretty enjoyable. Like I said, I don't really know too much of her work other than Austin Powers. So,
Right.
um, man, but loved Liz Hurley back in the day.
Yeah, the movies introduce, obviously you have Peter Cook and Liz Hurley playing the devil characters. You've got Dudley Moore and Brendan Fraser playing your kind of like hapless losers. Um,
Yeah, so Dudley Moore's character, his name is Stanley, and then Brendan Fraser's character's name Elliot. Now the devil is you can call it the devil, but in the original, he also has a name. His name is George.
George
And
Spigot,
yeah, in the remake, we don't have a name for Liz Hurley. It's just Devil, right?
right? The original film, in my opinion, leans a little bit heavier into the religious themes. We actually open the movie with Dudley Moore actually at church. He's in a pew, and there's a voiceover of him basically asking God for a favor. He's like, God, I believe in you, but I really want to get to know Margaret, who's his love interest in that film. And you see the movie starts out already with like a comedic effect, like Peter Cook kind of like just peeking through a stained glass window, and we're getting this is our intro to the two characters in an actual religious setting. So the allusion to we were going to play with religion a little bit is right there in the opening scene in that way. Whereas in the new film, as opening credits roll, there's different labels and tags that are put on people as you're sort of traveling the world. There's like lines about souls saved and souls lost, and that's how they decide to intro that there's I don't know like this devil or like this religious sequence.
It almost seems like somebody's watching over everybody and kind of pointing out their sins. That's kind of the vibe I got from the remake's opening, with just like a description at everybody's little sin or fault. I don't know.
Right.
Somebody's watching. It's what the vibe I got.
Yeah, it's a different way to approach the concept that there's going to be sort of like religious overtones in the film itself. Um, Personally, I'm fine with either one. Like, I'm not really leaning towards either one when it comes to introing the characters because they both do the job of here's here's your character, here's kind of like what a general theme of this movie is going to be, and like any film, the intro lays out sort of your expectations for the rest of the film. So it's just two separate ways of introing these characters and letting us know as a viewer that there's going to be this sort of, like you said, someone watching you, this overarching theme of like higher powers. So yeah, starting with the protagonist, Stanley is a short order cook. He makes burgers and he works with a woman named Margaret Spencer. Stanley, we see a lot more voiceover for him. Like he's pining over Margaret, and we can hear that character's inner monologue. When he gets an opportunity to talk to her, he doesn't do it. The movie starts a little bit darker because at that point, our Stanley character attempts to kill himself. So he again with the British humor, he's looking up a book on how to tie a noose.
Oh yeah. He's able to tie the noose successfully. Unfortunately, it's on a pipe that's not quite structurally sound, so it just falls apart, and he's pretty more pathetic than he was before he was going to kill himself.
And that's the theme of this Stanley. He's well both excuse me both main characters, but right there in that sequence, you see just how pathetic he is. And he says it. He's like, I'm not even able to kill myself, like he's clearly just not a confident person. And at that point, the devil just kind of walks right in. Like he's attempting to kill himself. The devil makes himself comfortable in his house, and we get introduced to George Spigot, the devil himself, Lucifer. What do you say? I mean, he plays it pretty straight. I mean, he comes in, and it's not unbelievable that he would be the devil. He's got a cloak and things of that nature. It's an odd intro, but there's some devilish features to him.
He plays it pretty normal. He's just like a normal guy. He doesn't have any like big proclamation. He doesn't come out like bombastic, like with his voice, like "Oh, I am the devil." He just talks like a normal British dude. There's nothing spectacular about him except the fact that he does have the cape. Yeah, he just seems like, I guess he doesn't seem evil. He does seem kind of like wanting to help Stanley out, and I guess that's a different take of the devil at the time in the '60s.
Yeah, he doesn't do anything overtly evil at this point in the interaction. He comes in and he's Peter Cook's take on the devil is very cheeky, is the way to put it. There there's the ceiling is now leaking because Stanley's attempted to kill himself, and he's helping Stanley like find socks and like a cork. He does this thing where he tells Stanley, "Hey, this interaction is about £1,000,000. Let me tell you about your family, and you could be inheriting £1,000,000, and he goes off in this like sort of long diatribe about like Stanley's family history, and it all kind of ends with this joke. This joke essentially saying that, oh no, your like grandfather like wasted all your money. You're a penniless loser, essentially. So like there's those types of jokes that this devil makes. Like he seemingly on your side, and then there's the twist, and we get introduced to that concept right there in one of the opening sequences. Where it's like, oh yeah, let me tell you about the $1,000,000 that you're going to inherit. It's already been spent. Like that's the type of joke that this devil likes to make. Whereas Elliot in the other film, Brendan Fraser's character,
He's a computer guy. I don't know. What is his job exactly?
I think that's kind of like
Sales.
the point. Yeah, I think he's more like a customer service rep.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's right.
For like Signdine Company. It's just like a generic corporate office. We get the idea that he's a loser because he opens the door for one person and everybody just walks through the door. He's literally labeled as a doormat in that opening sequence, and it's very obvious from his interactions with other co-workers that this guy is he's socially awkward.
He's kind of he got Asperger's or something because he just can't pick up on these social cues that they don't want him around, but he's
Right.
really just putting himself right in there. It's kind of a jerk, a little bit.
Yeah, and I think that's a nice juxtaposition there where he's seemingly means well, but because he can't pick up on social clues, it does turn him into a bit of a jerk. Like I don't think that the character starts likable in any sense of the word, which I guess playing that off of the original film, when you have a character who basically just has a bad day at work and is like trying to kill himself, we're actually starting from a place where I think in both films where you may be more likely to actually like the devil character more than your protagonist, just based on the actions that they're taking. Getting back to the movie, Stanley is socially awkward, and he basically works his way into an office outing with other people at his job, where he continues to be extremely awkward. For me, it's kind of hard to say who I like more, because I tend to like Dudley Moore. The Dudley Moore character is, he's like a loser, but it's kind of like self-contained, which is for me a little more palatable. Mm-hmm. Whereas like Brendan Fraser is just so over the top. Like he's interrupting people's conversations. He's like inserting him into situations where people don't want him. A lot of the things that make him a loser seem to be kind of like more of his own fault, like whether it's he can't pick up on social cues, whatever that may be. He's from the jump a little bit less likable because he's doing all these cringy things throughout the film, whereas Dudley Moore's character is no, he can't talk to this woman, but he like tries to kill himself. It's like such an extreme thing, and for me, like Dudley Moore's character is a little bit more likable. He's going to such an extreme measure in a way that like it's almost overkill. At least it's like kind of like just affecting him, whereas like Elliot Richards is he's a loser, but he's a jerk at the same time.
Yeah, I get that. No, I think I agree with you. I think I like Stanley's character. Pre Wishes, I think I like Dudley Moore Stanley. Like you said, they're both losers, but Brendan Fraser's more of like this awkward kind of almost jerk to these coworkers
Yeah.
that really don't deserve any, any of the negativity that they get towards the end of the movie. But yeah, like you said, it's his own fault. He just can't pick up on these social cues, and he just keeps digging himself deeper. And it's just like, stop, Brendan Fraser, stop doing that. While Stanley, he's not really being annoying to people. He doesn't have any like confidence or anything to talk to women or just to do anything he wants. His interactions with the devil I really like because he's really naive and he's so easy to
Right.
manipulate for the devil. And he's just like, why don't you just rest in my bed? Oh yeah, thanks. She's so nice, and it's just
Yeah.
that British politeness. So yeah, there's a charm to Dudley Moore's Stanley, and then Brendan Fraser's Elliot's just a little bit of a jerk. But having said that, when they do the wishes, I
Mhm.
like a lot what Brendan Fraser does with his characters in the wishes a lot more than what Dudley Moore did when Stanley became the wishes. Like I feel like Brendan Fraser really transforms as soon as
Yeah.
Wish One takes place, and then he really starts to take off, and that's when you really start to like his character, I think.
Yeah. I'll say that there is a character building that's happening throughout the wishes for Brendan Fraser's character. He seems to be a little bit more kind of receptive of the information that he's getting throughout the wishes. Whereas like the Dudley Moore character, a lot of times the when he's doing the characters, they don't really feel like it's still him.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Stanley Moon that you're introduced to. So you sort of end up feeling like some of these wishes are sort of disconnected from the character. Whereas I think Brendan Fraser does one a great job of transforming into the quote unquote different characters while still retaining, for the most part, the original character's essence. So it's like somehow, and we'll get into it, but like somehow while being a Colombian drug lord, he's still he's still like the original loser. Where I feel like the Dudley Moore, his transformations are so complete that they actually don't even feel like at times the same character to me. And again, that's an opinion that you may have your own there.
No, I think I agree with you. I think the first, getting a little ahead of ourselves, because that first wish that Brendan Fraser does, like he's kind of blown away by his whole new situation. He's like, commenting on everything that's like happened to him. He's just like, oh my god, I can't believe this, I can't believe this, I can't believe
Yeah,
this. Whereas Dudley Moore's character was just like, I'm already in it. I'm not everything that's happening around me. It's just it's almost like it's the way it's always been. Nothing's
right.
surprising me. Nothing's wonderful. It's just this is the way it goes, and I'm just already going with it. But I think Brendan Fraser, the way he's like, oh my god, this is incredible. You go along with him more because you're just
Yeah,
like, yeah, this is sudden, and yeah, he's acknowledging that this is sudden. Okay, so it's easier to go on that ride than I guess the Stanley characters. So
yeah.
I guess overall, I like Stanley as a normal person, but I like Elliot in the wishes, if that makes sense.
I think that makes sense, and we will definitely get to the wishes
Hmm.
again, not to get too far ahead of ourselves. But I think you're kind of nailing a theme where the Dudley Moore character, when he takes on a wish, he seems to have just been in that life, whereas Brendan Fraser seems more like the audience of an observer of what's going on to himself. So I think that those are two parallels that we'll see when we get to that portion.
Hmm.
The two lead sort of female characters before we get into the devil. So yeah, so you've got Margaret Spencer played by Eleanor Braun, and Allison being played by Frances O'Connor. I hate to say it like this, both characters. I think the Margaret character from the original, we actually get to know a bit more about as a character, and there, we'll get into why.
Hmm.
But both of them are kind of like window dressing.
Yeah.
They're, you know, which I think is sort of the concept of this loser character who is taking on this idea of who these women are, and it's more the idea than actually the person themselves.
Hmm.
At least early on in the films. So I think both actresses do a fine job, but like there's nothing really to cling on to for
Yeah.
either one of them.
Yeah, because as our main character changes his persona in every wish, so does
Mm,
his love interest.
right,
So the only thing that's the same is just the way she kind of looked, just her face. Not even her hair is like always the same, right?
right.
So it's kind of this uh, I don't know, shallow kind of love because it's not really I'm in love with the girl and the way she is. I just want her to be in love with me, and I don't care what she does as long as she still looks like that
Right.
and just loves me. So yeah, I guess character wise, it's hard to build on her character when you don't really know who she is because
Yeah.
you're just getting these sort of ideals that he wishes she would be
Sure.
to
Sure.
love him.
I mean, the closest thing you get is after Stanley attempts to kill himself in the original film. Um, there's a detective character that the love interest talks to throughout the film, so you get some background
Hmm.
into her those interactions. There's a scene in the new film where Brendan Fraser goes through her diary, and you get some character building from that, but even that, like her diary entry in the new film, is pretty shallow.
Yeah.
So
And
it's
I wasn't 100% sure that the devil was being honest. It could have been all fake from
yeah,
I was never 100% sure about that scene.
that's fair, and that's a good way to put it because when you look at the two devils, you've got Peter Cook playing George Spigot, the devil himself, and then Liz Hurley playing her take on the devil. It's the unreliable sort of narrator. They're taking us along in the story, but can you trust them because they are the devil? From the very beginning of the film, they both more or less trick the main character into taking on a wish that none of us really, unless you're really paying attention, are aware is the first wish. Dudley Moore meets Peter Cook and he asks for a Frobisher's ice cream, ice lolly. Brendan Fraser asked for a Big Mac. So
He didn't even get any fries with that.
and then they pay for it. Both.
Yeah.
So there's that same parallel there where you get this early look at the devil on both sides, and there's this, as the British would say, there's this cheeky sort of there's this deviousness to them that's a little more subtle than just outright devil. You're not getting this like evil feeling from the characters. So I mean, for you, like, what's your take on the Peter Cook devil, George Spigot?
I mean, like I said before, he's kind of just like a normal dude and seems like all right and nice. But I mean, if I had to choose, I gotta go Liz Hurley here because if you have to hang out with the devil all day, you might as well hang out with the hot one, you
I,
know. And like I said, Liz Hurley was the reason I saw that movie.
yeah,
So I mean, character wise, they're both kind of the same. Like you said, they're not really pure evil, but they're mischievous, I guess.
right.
They do little things that are kind of annoying to other people. They're really childish in, I guess, with these evil deeds that they do.
Yeah,
It's really stuff that little kids would find funny, and it's
not
not really entirely evil, right? They're not going to like hospitals and killing children, which would be it's like okay,
yeah,
wow, or orphanages and burning those. No, that would that would just be too much, I guess. But they're messing with parking meters and messing with the traffic lights and it's just these small little cheeky things. Exactly that,
sure.
that British cheekiness to these devils. But like I said, if I gotta hang out with one all day, might as well hang out with Liz Hurley, who keeps changing into these sexy outfit versions of all these different jobs, and she wears
Yeah,
really well.
yeah, absolutely. And I'll say that both devil characters do a great job of infusing humor into it. Like you said, like there's moments where Liz Hurley's messing with parking meters. She she sets the car on fire. I'd say that was probably the most intense of the devil actions that we see. Whereas Peter Cook is like trying to get birds to poop on people's the things that he's doing, like you said, they're pretty innocuous. And the main characters in both films both sort of point out that like you mentioned, these childish like antics that they're pulling off. It's like, you're supposed to be the devil, but I see you're just doing these like little childish pranks, more or less. And in both films, the devil is more or less likable. Like,
Yeah.
it's a positive character. So you're getting to see some of that with humor infused. And I think both of them do a great job with the humor. But obviously, Peter Cook cannot beat Liz Hurley hot factor.
No, they both do it. They both do a good job of being charming, right? I think that's
Hmm.
kind of the point, that you want the devil to be charming because you want to be hanging out with this person, you want to trust this person. So they have this charming and almost trust factor, but you can't entirely trust them because it's the devil, right? And
Right.
these things are going to come back and bite you in the ass. So it's quite a balancing act they have to do there between like being trustworthy and still I'm still the devil. So, and I think they both pull it off pretty well. They're both funny in their own right, but just
Absolutely.
at the end of the day, you can't deny Liz Hurley, huh?
There's just enough under the surface for both characters. There's just enough where you're like, okay, there is a danger factor here, although they're being nice. And, Liz Hurley's character kind of says that outright, that like she is being nice, but she can, kind of do the fire and brimstone thing if she felt like it. And that's a fun play off of, the prince or princess or whatever it is of evil in both of these films.
She actually has like a dark moment, like towards the end of the movie when she's like, "Make your final wish," where she like,
Right.
starts getting serious and like, "You will burn for all
Yeah.
eternity." Peter Cook never gets to have that moment. He's always the likable devil the entire movie. He's never threatening, like the way
Yeah.
Liz Hurley, as threatening as a giant Liz Hurley in a bikini can be. He's never that threatening.
Right. The closest thing that the original film has to it is that cameo by Raquel Welch. There's another character that has to be kind of like the sexy character in the film, and it's interesting to see that play out in one character in the remake, where it's like the devil, but also like she's a bombshell too, and it's a nice touch. If you want to go pure comedy, I think Peter Cook is my choice personally, just because I think he does a lot of subtle things throughout his portrayal that bring a lot of humor into the film. Liz Hurley does the same thing. She's not purely a comedic actress, you would say, but she does great in comedies, as you mentioned, Austin Powers. So I think it depends on what you're going for. My slight edge is to Peter Cook for this character, but I think you're leaning the other way, if
Oh
I had to
yeah,
guess.
heavy Liz Hurley over here.
Love it. Which I
Maybe we
guess
should get into the wishes.
there it is.
There
Yeah.
we go. Yeah, let's talk about these wishes, these 7 fun wishes. All right, so let's start with the wishes, not the tricky wish where we'll get into that one.
Well, yeah.
Let's start
Well,
with the fun ones. So Dudley Moore's first wish, I guess, just to be an intellectual.
yeah. So he's not articulate. He doesn't use words like articulate. And Dudley Moore's character wishes that he could express himself to Margaret, because we see in the opening sequence he wants to talk to Margaret, but he can't.
Yeah, even when
So
she's taking an order or giving him an order, he like can't even say 2 words to her. He's just like, even though he
yeah,
works with her, he still can't talk to her. So yeah, to be an intellectual, so he can just all the words can just easily come out and he can woo her.
I love the weird accent that he takes on here.
Oh
He's
yeah,
like rolling his R's a lot. And he's
a
um,
proper intelligent
proper,
person, right?
yes.
Yes. Was he kind of Scottish? I kind of got like almost a Scottish vibe.
Almost, something like that. Regal is, I think, what they were going for there. And, he is, in this case, truly an intellectual. I like that the apartment doesn't really change. Like, there's more stuff in it, but, like, he's more or less in the same place, which I thought was fun. And, he's talking about different arts and music and long walks. Like, he now is able to express himself quite a bit. Smart guy, articulate. They're listening to records at their house, but there's a catch. you know, um, because it's going so well for him, and Dudley Moore is not used to being able to express himself to Margaret. When it comes to sort of like the physical side of things, he just goes way over the top. Like he can't contain himself, and he sort of throws himself onto Margaret.
Well,
And
but wait, before that, the whole thing was like they were talking about like you ever just touch something, like how something feels really nice when when you can't see it, right? So they're using the more tactile approach. They blindfolded themselves and are just starting to touch random things in the apartment,
right,
and then she just starts I don't know, sort of insinuating like I just want to touch everything, and don't you just want to touch? Doesn't it just feel good? And then she just kept mentioning how she likes touching. She wants to be touched, and he's like, "Yeah, why shouldn't you just be touched? If I'm right here and I'm touching, you're touching." And then
he says it's like I'm a man, you're a woman. If there's two adults that want to do things, they should certainly do it. There's this undertone of, oh, well, clearly we're talking about getting physical. Dudley Moore leans into that feeling and he tries to get physical with Margaret Spencer because, there's some innuendo going on there. She immediately reacts very poorly.
did
Yeah.
she start yelling rape?
She yelled rape.
She
Yes.
starts
She
yelling
yelled
rape.
rape.
Yes.
Contextually, I don't think you can do that in films anymore for just pure comedy. But yeah, she starts yelling out that she's being raped.
Yeah.
And you can like the police are immediately there. You can hear them banging on the door, and it's all like a bit of fun. In the modern era, I don't know if modern audiences are going to have as much fun with it as was intended there. But it's a humorous moment.
Oh yeah, I could understand what they meant. They weren't making light of rape. They were just kind of
Nah,
like this guy was crossing the line. He didn't realize it, and then all of it just got blown way out of proportion. And then now the cops are here, so I understood what they were going for. And yeah, I had a good laugh.
I had a laugh with it in that moment because we didn't talk about this yet. In that moment, Stanley blows a raspberry. He does the sound, and that's the way that he gets to come back to the real world. Back to being just Stanley and out of the wish. So as soon as the articulate stuff was working, but he tried to get physical, it wasn't working. This wish has gone sideways. He's out, blows a raspberry, and he's out. The new film, it's not quite sequenced the same way. There's a similar wish I think you were getting at, but it's not wish one, but we should talk about the parallel.
Yeah. So this is Wish 4 for Brendan Fraser, and it's sort of the same thing. He just wants to be an intellectual. He wants to be smart because we'll get into it. His previous wish he was dumb, so he just really wants to be smart. He wants Allison to fall in love with his brain, and he also wants to hang dong. He wants to be huge down there.
Yeah.
It's
I guess
also
we'll
related.
get into that because in a previous wish there was an issue with size.
Yeah, pretty much in his last wish he was stupid and had a tiny dick. So he wants to be smart and have a big dick. All right.
Yeah.
So
Let's
there you
call
go.
it what it is.
There you go. So he does that. He's at this dinner party. There's a lot of people in suits. There's fancy cocktail music going on. Everybody's drinking champagne, talking about books he's releasing. Oh yeah, we should talk about this too. And his wishes, he's always there with his coworkers. His 3, sometimes 4 coworkers, but mainly these 3 other guys that he works with. And in the original, Stanley is always there. Well, I guess was the devil there in the first wish? Because the devil's usually there, but
He wasn't really there for that first wish.
Okay.
That was sort of an independent wish.
Okay.
You are right. The devil is typically there, but there were a few in the original where you're not seeing sort of the recurring characters.
Okay, so the only recurring character in the original, other than Margaret and Stanley, is the devil sometimes. But in the remake, not only do we get Elliot and Allison, but we get the 3 coworkers, sometimes a 4th coworker, and sometimes the devil. So there's a lot of characters in the remake. I love the one character, Orlando Jones. He's got his name. I always try to say it. I can't say it. Baba.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Your new book is about to get published. That's right. Baba. I can't roll my tongue like this. But yeah, he has all these highly intellectual people at his apartment, and then he sees Allison. And he starts wooing her, talking about what the largest organ on your body is. About you don't know. It's your skin. And then corpuscles and stuff like that. They start getting drunk in champagne, And then he brings her back to his apartment, so it looks like everything's good, right? She's in love with him. He's got her, and they're a little tipsy. They're back at his place, but then
Uh-oh. Big twist.
big
Turns
twist.
out
Yeah.
Brendan Fraser is turns out Brendan Fraser's gay. And this is revealed to us for the first time and to Brendan Fraser that he is already married to another man. And Brendan Fraser can't believe it. He's like, "Oh, come on. There's no way that I'm gay." His husband in that wish sequence pretty funnily asked him a bunch of questions that immediately apparently are qualifiers. They asked about the original cast of Rent, things like that. And to prove that he's not gay, Brendan Fraser kisses the Allison character, and to a comedic effect, there's this deadpan moment where he's like, "Yep, nope, totally gay. Yep, it was nice knowing you. Have a good evening." That's a more modern film. I don't know if, again, because of the way like society has been trending with art, I don't know if that plays for a modern audience. But again, I think both films are just having a bit of good old school fun. I don't think there's much thought into different groups. It's just funny. All right, he wants to hook up with a chick. He gets everything he wants, but turns out he doesn't even like women. So
Yeah.
that wish is bunk, and that's how that one went. Obviously, the equivalent on the other side, a little more extreme, where he's able to articulate, but when he goes to get physical, he's overstepping his bounds. They're both fun ways to approach the intellectual. Which one? I'm gonna give the nod to the Brendan Fraser wish one, just because there's a lot of lead up before we get to that big sort of comedic reveal, and it's actually one of Brendan Fraser's funnier reveals, in my opinion, when it comes to the wish. So that wish one in the original versus wish four in the new one, I like the Brendan Fraser scene there. It's one because there are more characters, there's more to play with in the scene, and I think it serves the movie well.
No, I think I got to go with the remake on that one too. You're sitting there, it's already the fourth wish, and you're trying to figure out where is it? When's the floor gonna, or when's the rug gonna be pulled out from under him? When are we gonna see the thing that makes this wish suck? And then it's like, oh yeah, there it is. So it came out of nowhere. It's unexpected, and I guess it's, even though it's bizarre and it's weird that he doesn't know he's gay. I guess it's
Right.
more believable for me because, like, in the original, he's talking about touching all these things with the girl, and then she's kind of talking the same thing, and all of a sudden he just starts touching her, and then she just like freaks out right away. It's like, whoa,
Yeah.
whoa, where'd that come from? I guess like women could freak out like that, but I mean, the way she was talking, it's just like, yeah, I guess she wants some touching, right? So it almost came out of nowhere for me in the original. But I still had a laugh at it. But I think I definitely laughed a lot more at the Brendan Fraser one. Yeah.
Yeah, I just think that all the lead up in the Brendan Fraser one, like his new book is about like neoclassical romance. Like
Who buys this stuff? And then his character, yeah, he just has so much fun with these characters. I think it's really enjoyable to watch him. We'll get into that more as we talk about more of these wishes, but he really has fun with these characters.
Yeah, absolutely. And sort of leaning back to us talking about how we originally introduced these films. Hey, man, the range of Brendan Fraser is on full display here. So I mean, this is just a treat for me, my friend. But yeah, no, fun first wish in the first film. It's a nice little intro into the way wishes don't go well. I think that this new film was smart to have sort of their articulate one play out where it does. I think that it played better to sequence it where they had it as wish 4 in the new film. Again, it's a longer scene. There's more to play with there. It gives you an actual payoff. So there's a lot more fun in that first wish. So I don't know if we're officially doing this, but I'm going to say the nod for that wish is there for me for the remake.
I agree too. I think we're going to find, because it's more modern and because it's also more American, the humor, I think we might lean a little bit more there. But we will see. I don't know.
We'll see. There could be some variances.
Well, we have to go through all the wishes. So on that note, let's go on to the second wish in the original, which was to be rich, powerful, and married to his love interest. So he wants to be married to Margaret. So Dudley Moore, or Stanley, I should say, he's rich. He has this big house. But they're just outside at the mansion. They're at a pool or something. I can't exactly remember. I know there's a guy that really flirts with her.
I want to say they were at least like having some sort of like picnic or something like that. I'm trying to remember exactly what was going on. But you see Dudley Moore's character sort of arrives on the scene and meets up with Margaret. Was it the devil in this situation?
The devil was there, yes.
Yeah,
And the
it's like
guy's name was Randy, if you want that too.
so Margaret is hanging out with Randy in this situation, and Dudley Moore's character is rich and he's powerful.
And he is married to her.
He is married to her. He's doing anything he can to try to make her happy. He gets her expensive things. That plays like comedic effect because we start to see that Margaret has like sort of this thing for Randy going on. There's clearly some sort of like sexual tension there. And anytime you start to see that laid on kind of thick, Dudley Moore goes off to get another expensive thing to hand to her. Very British. I found that to be funny. Here comes another twist. It's like, hey, I'm rich and I'm powerful, but the woman of my dreams really isn't that interested in me. Even though I have these things going on, she's more interested in Randy.
I think he also wanted to be a little more forward sexually too, right?
I don't.
Because she didn't, or was that another wish?
I think that may have been another wish. I think.
Okay,
I
I'm
think.
jumping ahead. Maybe I'm jumping ahead to when he met Lust. All right, my bad.
Yeah, no problem. But I think that where you're going with that though is because in this sequence he's realizing that he needs to make those parameters because he's got the riches, he's got the power, and he's married to her, but she has no interest in him. So he's realizing now that one of the devil's tricks is that sure you can have all these things, but if you don't specify, you're gonna end up with not exactly what you wanted. So in this situation, she couldn't be bothered with him. That's not what he truly was wishing for. He wanted her to be married to him and like him, and that didn't happen in this sequence.
It's actually kind of a double twist because the whole time she's with Randy, they're just touching each other all the time.
Yeah,
Is he like a teacher of hers or something?
I,
Because I remember she had a music lesson, so maybe he's
yeah,
a
that's what it
music
was.
instructor or something. But for some reason, he's also at the pool with her. I don't know. Anyway,
Yeah,
so the whole time, like Dudley Moore's, he's talking with the devil, who's now, I guess he's not the devil. He's just a business associate
right.
that he's talking with. The whole time, he's always looking over his shoulders, like, where's Margaret? Where's my wife?
Yeah.
And she's always with Randy, and they're always like have less clothes on and are always touching. Finally, he's like, where is she? And then you can hear her music lesson, and the music stops. So you think, oh, now he's gonna walk in on them having sex. But it's just Randy by himself. There's no Margaret. And you're like, huh. So she's not cheating on him. But then he goes back, and then now the devil is gone, and then he walks in on the devil and his wife in a bath together. And she's naked. Or you at least see a body double, her
Right.
breasts in the mirror. So,
Yeah.
So that was a little twist there. It wasn't Randy who slept with the wife. It was the devil.
Yeah, you did have that double twist. And I think Dudley Moore does such a good job in this scene of as he's coming to these realizations, he sort of trails off with his talk. I thought she was taking those music lessons. And you see him kind of like trying to figure out where she is and if she's with Randy. Why is it quiet right now? Like you said, why, they're frolicking around quite a bit. And it's a fun sequence. I think that everybody does a great job in that scene of just making the comedy happen between the lines. Like everything's sort of implied. And you're right. You're thinking that, oh, no, the music's not playing. She must be hooking up with Randy. And then you realize that there's even more to it. It's a fun sequence.
Mm-hmm. Definitely one of the more fun sequences, I think, with the wishes. I really enjoyed it. Yeah, I just really like Dudley Moore the whole time. Like he's just so desperate to try to please her. Like every time bringing her a new present. He brings her the Mona Lisa at one point.
The Mona Lisa, yeah.
And then she's just like, yeah, it looks nice, I guess. And he's just like standing there with his grin, like, huh? Do you like it? He's really charming during this wish. I really appreciated his performance the whole time.
Very fun. Now, would you say Wish 2, Dudley Moore's character, is essentially Wish 1 for Brendan Fraser?
Absolutely. He wants to be rich and powerful and married to Allison. So it's exactly what he gets. Or is it?
Is it?
Because all of a sudden, he habla español.
Yeah, it's a big swing right out the gate for the remake. Brendan Fraser, he lives in a mansion in Colombia. It's clear that he has a lot of money and he's got a lot of power. And it's fun. Like you said, his character speaks Spanish, which is funny. It's funny that Brendan Fraser is doing most of this scene in Spanish. We get introduced to the concept that the co-workers are going to be in the sequence because you see Orlando Jones is there with a crazy wig and like mustache. All of his co-workers are like the workers for him, and everything seems to be more or less fine. But Allison has her own love interest in this sequence, the English teacher.
Raoul.
And it's funny because Brendan Fraser again. I think there is a similar sort of double twist here where Brendan Fraser is so focused on Raoul and the English lessons that he's giving his wife that he never really questions why he's rich, or he never really questions like why he speaks Spanish. He's just kind of there. It turns out, for comedic effect, that he is a Colombian drug lord. He's
What? That wasn't sugar? What?
yeah, it's like he's basically Pablo Escobar. And
Cocaína! It's cocaína!
Raul's been sleeping with his wife for months now. She's not getting much better at English. And the bad twist is that he's a Colombian drug lord.
Well, I think it's bigger. I think the main twist is that like she's sleeping with this Raul guy, and she hates him. She straight up tells him she hates him. I think it's just salt to the wound, saying, "Hey, you're also a Colombian drug lord too." So there you go.
Yeah, that's sort of that final twist. Is like, yes, you are a Colombian drug lord, and you're being raided right now. He's like in the middle of like a crazy shootout. It's a pretty intense action sequence for just being like a kind of goofy comedy. But man, like you said, we're going to see a little bit of quote unquote range from Brendan Fraser because will be times where he plays a Spanish drug lord.
I mean, if we're comparing the two, I think I have to give it to the remake again here. I kind of mentioned it before, but Brendan Fraser just has so much fun with these characters that he becomes. And this is his first wish in the remake. So he's coming to the realizations like, hold on, I'm speaking Spanish. I never could speak Spanish. So he's having so much fun discovering all these new, abilities and talents that he has, or just his new life. He's just everything he discovers. He's having so much fun with it, and you're having so much fun with him, just watching him discover all these things. I really love that scene when he learns he can speak Spanish, and then he just recalls his Spanish teacher in high school. He's like, "Oh, if she could see me now." He's having so much fun. I'm having fun. I really love it. I think it's either this one or one of them. This is one of my favorite wishes in the remake. That's for sure.
This is definitely a favorite for me as well. It's not my absolute favorite, but it's like I said, it's close.
Mm-hmm.
But I think one of the things too is that you get introduced to way more concepts here when it comes to Wish One in the remake. Mm-hmm. You can understand that it's not limited to culture at all. He could be speaking Spanish. You're realizing that the character could become wildly different than what you're used to seeing from Elliot Richards. Like his appearance is completely different throughout his wishes, and we're introduced to that concept pretty early here. Whereas in the original, there are times where Dudley Moore is a different character, but he's sort of close enough to the pen that it doesn't really change much often. Whereas like Brendan Fraser's characters they're characters and they're being played out, and I think it serves the remake pretty well. So like you said, I'm a huge fan of Wish Number One in the first film.
Yeah, it does a really good job of setting the rules and world building in the remake. As Brendan Fraser discovers all these new things, we're discovering them, and then he's learning the rules, we're learning the rules with him.
Right.
So it's easier for us to go for the ride, as opposed to the original where it's just all the rules were kind of just there, and you kind of had to figure it out because Dudley Moore's character already knew, but you didn't know. So having Brendan Fraser kind of act as you would in that situation, I think it's a strength of the remake, that's for sure.
Absolutely. One subtle difference here is when the wishes go bad in the remake, there is essentially like a pager or something like that.
Yeah, I think that's what she said, pager.
Yeah. So, he has to type in the magic number 666 and he can go back to being just Elliot Richards. And you see it in the sequence as well. There's different moments where he's not going to have access to the pager, outright. Sometimes he has to figure out where it is or how it fits into the context of the scene that he's in, as opposed to just like blowing a raspberry. From a 1960s British humor, I'm sure that's hilarious, but like blowing raspberries, after a while, it's like, it's a bit childish.
Yeah, I was watching it, and my wife was just doing whatever in the background. She's like, "I hate it every time he makes that noise." I'm like, "I'm sorry." He does it every time he hates a wish. I don't know
Yeah,
what to do.
I'm gonna tell you.
No, going back to the pager though. I mean, like you said, it's not as easy for him to get out of these wishes. But I'm glad they didn't do. I was afraid that they were going to do a sequence where somebody stole the pager, and then
Yeah,
he would be stuck in the wish, and then he'd have to go on a chase. I was really afraid the remake would do that. I'm just really happy they didn't.
there's zero reason for it. It would have been sort of like false drama. I don't think that
Mm-hmm.
there was any need for it, given from a building standpoint. We get it, like you're in the wish, you're gonna get out of the wish. Like we don't need things to be missing. The closest thing we'll get to it is we'll get to when
Yeah,
he
yeah. Where he has
loses
to
it.
look for it. Yeah.
To me, that's way more acceptable than what you just described. I'm glad no one took it either because it would have been a waste of time. I think.
All right, so let's go on to the third wish of the original, which
Hmm.
was to be a famous pop star.
Oh yeah,
So this is where Dudley Moore's songwriting abilities come to full play. And it's
this is
pretty
a weird
much,
sequence.
yeah, it is a little weird. It's kind of like an old 60s kind of Ed Sullivan type of
Yeah,
deal where they're just having making a music video kind of thing where he's kind of lip syncing to a song and then everybody's enjoying it and dancing and all the girls like it. It's kind
yeah.
of it was all right. What'd you think of the song? I wasn't.
I thought of it as okay, satire. The song didn't blow me away or anything like that. It wasn't terrible, but it certainly wasn't like great, which I think is sort of the statement that they were trying to make because it seemed like it was kind of like poppy bullshit more or less.
Mm.
We're immediately followed by what I think is an even weirder song is the George Spigot Devil song where he's basically like, I don't care,
Yeah.
like he got this like moody.
You got these opposite things kind of going on. Dudley Moore songs all about love me, love me. It's kind of like
Yeah,
the Beatles kind of thing, just
desperate.
love me. And then you got the Devil coming out, kind of like the Velvet Underground, just like leave me alone. He's not even singing. He's kind of just
Yeah,
talking while these women sing in the background. And
yeah,
then I guess that is where our twist comes in because in the middle of that song, that's when Margaret realizes, oh, I want this pop star instead of you.
right.
So it's kind of like because he seems needy in his song, and the devil just like, ugh, stay away from me. So I guess that
Yeah,
attracts the women.
yeah, yeah. Dudley Moore has this desperate, sort of song that, again, Margaret, because part of his wish was, he wanted to be a big pop star and for Margaret to like him, which she does. She likes his music until she's introduced to something she likes a little bit more. So there, like you said, there goes the twist again. Just a bit more character fleshing out that his song is so desperate and needy that he really needs to be loved. The devil, like his song it doesn't truly matter. It's there to sort of juxtaposition, but at the end of the day, it has nothing really to do with the devil because he's not really after Margaret Spencer. But it's a nice way to show that there's two sort of dichotomies here. And Stanley Moon is just way over the top when it comes to trying to get acceptance.
And I guess the equal to that in the remake is not. There was a rock star sequence, but it was cut.
Hmm.
But what we have is sort of. I think this is sort of the equal is like just being famous is the
Yeah,
basketball thing.
I was gonna say that is probably the closest parallel.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. All right, so in the remake, he wants to be big, he wants to be strong, he wants to be this NBA star. So Brendan
Mhm.
Fraser comes out. How tall is he? He's like 7'6" or
Yeah,
something.
it's something crazy like that. He's 7'6".
He's got this ridiculous blonde wig on.
It's
He's really stupid, but he's really good at basketball.
He's really good at basketball.
He plays on a team called the Diablos. A little bit on the nose there,
Yeah,
but it's all right. You're going for the ride.
it's pretty fun.
He's incredible at basketball, and then Allison, he pretty much makes like breaks every record, getting all these points, and then he goes to the locker room, and then Allison's a reporter. She's
Hmm.
interviewing him, and you just see how stupid he is, just answering all these questions.
Yeah,
He can't get a thought out. Like
it's like the team we get out there and we play and the
it was
team out.
good. Yeah, it was a good
Yep.
team. We played good, and you want to play good. And there you go, Brendan Fraser, just
Yeah,
spreading his acting chops all around. No, it was great. And then like, oh no, she says to him, has about like a private interview. He's like, all
Yeah.
right, I guess let me just shower first. And she's like, all right, I'm ready. So he's got nothing but a towel on. He's like, all right, I guess I'm gonna just take it off.
She's trying to get a big story, Dan.
A big scoop, right?
The big scoop, and
Well, she can't.
maybe they're gonna go back to her apartment for to get the scoop. A lot of innuendo
A
there.
lot of innuendo that he might not be picking up on because he's pretty stupid.
Right.
But he eventually figures it out. So he takes his towel off in front of her, and we never get to see it, which I feel
Right.
like, damn, I wish I could have seen it because apparently he has a really tiny dick. And
I,
then that's
his
just, yeah.
his reaction is great when he like opens up like, "Oh, come on!" Like,
What the hell? Damn the devil. Damn the devil. And
it's
then
fun.
she sees it and she's immediately like, "Oh, I gotta go write a story. Sorry, I can't be with you." Oh, you gotta give 100%. I
Yeah,
understand.
yeah. A little thing came up and she's got to go, and it's
Wait,
fun.
teeny? What's teeny? That's
I
good. So
mean,
basically, the joke is he's this amazing athlete, but he has a small dick,
yep.
so nobody wants to sleep with him.
Again, be careful what you wish for.
Hmm.
When you're talking about the films, because like it's been a while since I've seen these films. I would say we've already kind of talked about the two wishes that really stuck out to me from my first watch. I remember the Colombian drug lord scene because it's so ridiculous and over the top, and I remember this scene because again, the wig is bad. Like it's a pretty funny character, and like the payoff that he has a small dick it's hilarious. Clearly, once again, I got to give the nod in the wish department to the new film,
Hmm.
and for the reasons that we've talked about quite a bit already. But Brendan Fraser gets to act out these characters, and because these characters are fleshed out, the payoffs are just so much better. Because like you're sitting there, you're just waiting for the shoe to drop, and then when it drops, it's like, okay, small dick, got it. That's hilarious. Shit.
I definitely agree with you. I'm just thinking of the Dudley Moore one where he's the pop star, and it's kind of a one note joke. It's just like I'm singing about loving me, and then now the devil's just singing about don't love me, leave me alone. And there's not really a lot of humor in that
Nah,
wish. It's just you're kind of listening to two songs, and depending on the type of humor you're like, you might be laughing the whole time, or you might just be like, all right, this is running a little long. For me, I felt it was a little long. The songs they weren't that funny.
nah,
You understood it after the first sentence of the first verse. So it
right.
was like, I was waiting for something to happen, and it was just like, oh, that's the payoff. It's just he's just singing the opposite thing. All right, this is a little long, but the Brendan Fraser again, you got to give it to Brendan Fraser. He's having so much fun with these characters. He
Absolutely.
really plays that stupid basketball player like excellent. There's this one part where like I guess they rigged like some tube up to his hair because he's sweating nonstop being interviewed after the
Yeah,
basketball game, getting sweat all over the guy interviewing him. It's
so
just
fun.
good fun all around. Even when the reveal, he just looks like
Yeah,
he's having so much fun with these characters, and you can't help
yeah,
but have fun with him.
yeah. And again, even though, like I said, the female love interest in both films, there's not much to them. The Frances O'Connor character gets to play a little bit here, like she's reacting to seeing him, and she makes the joke about something being tiny, and again, the coworkers get to play like the commentators
Oh yeah,
during.
they're pretty good.
It's pretty funny, man. Like just the idea that he's like scoring like 104 points in a game, and like the way they're like introducing it while he's like dunking and stuff like that. It's a funny scene. I think the new film just gives all the actors so much more to work with that it pays off for the audience as well. Because to me, that's one of the highlights of the film. That's a very funny sequence. Great wish.
Hmm. Well, let's skip the original's fourth wish because that's a little bit different. There's nothing like that in the remake. So let's go to the fifth wish, where Stanley wants to be a loving couple. Pretty much the setup is Stanley comes what seems like his home, and Margaret's there in the kitchen, just kind of waiting for him, and she's happy to see him. She's in love with him, and we actually see them kiss. I was surprised. I was like, wow, he actually gets to kiss her here. But then immediately after he does that, the devil walks in as playing a normal person,
Hmm.
and he just happens to be married to Margaret. So there's the twist right there that yes, he got Margaret to fall in love with him, but it's because she's having an affair in this marriage to this seemingly perfect husband
Right.
the whole time. And that's kind of the joke that they play on, because after you find out that she's married to the devil, Stanley and Margaret, they go out in a car together, and then they start to, I guess they start to bang. They're going to have an affair. They're going to have sex. And the whole time they're doing it, they're just thinking about what an amazing husband that she has. And the whole time they're like making out and crying at the same time, which is pretty funny.
It's pretty funny. Just like they realize how good of a person, like you said, the devil's character is in this wish sequence, and both of them, they're having this affair, and they can't stand that they're hurting this very good person. Like it's too much for them to bear. Like you said, while they're taking their clothes off and things like that, they're crying, and it plays the pretty comedic effect. I think it's actually one of the more memorable, fun wishes of the original film.
Oh, definitely. I think Margaret has a lot more to do in this wish. She's having a lot more fun. Yeah, it's definitely one of the more memorable ones for me.
Just just the concept of them like they're driving away, and they start to hook up, and it's just the interaction that they have there. It's a lot of fun, and I'm glad that the movie let them actually play with some of these concepts here. It was a good twist. I already said it, but it's one of the better sequences.
There was a funny beat there too, because they're both in like the front seats of the car, and they're talking about what a good husband he is, and they get out of the car and you think, oh, they're not going to have the affair, but instead of stopping, they go into the back seat of the car to continue their affair. It's pretty funny.
It's so funny.
I guess the parallel wish to that in the remake is
The ultra sensitive.
yes, ultra sensitive Elliot.
Oh,
No,
man.
I think this
Do you
might
know
be
what
my
wish number
favorite
that
wish.
was? Was that wish 2 for him?
Yes,
Is that-
it was a wish too.
Okay.
He
Man.
wants to be sensitive, and he wants Allison to be in love with him, because this is following the first wish. So
That's right.
this is when,
Yes.
yeah, because Allison hated him so much in the first. He's like, "What's the point of being married to her if she hates me? So I just want her to be in love with me." This was all right. He thought he figured out the problem. He thought he figured out how to fix the problem, and he's like, "Okay, well, if she hated me, I'll just make her love me." So here we go.
Yeah.
Bam.
Yeah, and there's also that bit of pretext before he makes a wish where the devil brings him into Allison's room. So Allison's like taking a shower or something like that, and there's this whole invasion of privacy sort of thing. Brendan Fraser's uncomfortable with it, but he's not uncomfortable enough to take a peek at the diary.
Or I thought you were gonna say you're not uncomfortable enough to take a peek at her in the shower.
That I think that too.
Mm-hmm.
I think that too. You're right.
He absolutely does that. He's like, I'm not gonna look at her. Okay, one second.
Yeah, yeah. It does the sort of classic movie trope where he can see her, but she can't see him. She walks through him basically like a ghost.
Like in Ghost.
But we find out that in her diary, she's been with the jocks. She's been with the sort of tough guys in the past, and she wants someone a little bit more sensitive, someone that cares, about her, and that inspires Brendan Fraser's character to make the wish that he does. Before really jumping into that wish, I did want to say that there's sort of a parallel there as well with Brendan Fraser not actually being in the room, being like her being able to walk through him like a ghost. It's kind of similar to what we see in the original film where Dudley Moore's character is presumably dead or missing, and he can see some of the different interactions that Allison, that Margaret's having with the detective in the original film.
Yeah, can you maybe explain it to me? Because how did the whole investigation start? I guess he left the suicide note.
Yeah, so he left the suicide note before he met the devil. He was trying to hang himself, obviously failed, and now I guess because he's hanging out the devil, they didn't explain it, so it makes sense that you wouldn't know what was happening. Again, I'm just implying this, but it seems that as he's hanging out the devil, people can't see him, and he's like looking at different moments where a detective is supposed to be investigating either his death or him going missing. The detective is getting pretty close with Margaret while the Stanley Moon character is missing. I think that element's actually kind of cool because there's some tension there. We learn that she actually does care about Stanley a little bit, or at least noticed him, even though he didn't feel like he was noticed. You can hear her kind of talking about, oh, he was a nice guy and all this stuff. And the whole time, this detective's kind of trying to weasel in and make the moves on her.
Well, it's great because it actually we get to meet Margaret. We get to learn who she actually is, right? Not just these ideals that he has in his wishes, which is all we have in the remake. We don't
Right.
ever see Allison during the wishes at all.
Not in her own character
No,
either.
no.
Like if she does talk, she's playing
Hmm.
a journalist or something else. You're right.
Yeah. So yeah, I definitely like those scenes in the original, but I was just confused. Like, how did this investigation start? I guess he was just missing, and then there was a suicide note, and her name was on it, and that's
Yeah,
why she's there too. I just had trouble there. That's all.
I know it is strange because the detective does say that what was her relation to him because seemingly they're close. If he's leaving you a suicide note, but it seems like it kind of gets the wheels turning for her about like, oh yeah, Stanley, he's a nice guy more or less, and Stanley's realizing that kind of wishes that he was there to make his presence known, but he's too busy wrapped up in this deal with the devil to interact there. But I agree with you. I think that this is a great sequence for the Margaret character because we learn something about her.
Hmm.
She's not just this empty vessel. She's still kind of aloof in the scenes. She's kind of playing it dumb as well. Like clearly, this detective is trying to like make moves on her, and
Yeah.
she's not really picking up on it. Dudley Moore is not a fan of the detective because he's like, oh, look at him, uh, inviting her to dates and stuff like that. But again, I don't want to get too deep off of the wishes, but I thought that it was a nice subtle difference that I wanted to highlight
Hmm.
before we dove in. Um, but I guess going back to the super sensitive wish, Ginger Brendan Fraser.
Ginger Brendan Fraser, I think, is the
Man,
best Brendan Fraser. We can agree.
it's another fun sequence. It's not my favorite because I think that scene plays a little too long. But it is funny that he's just like he's sitting there, he's hanging out with Allison. He wants to express himself to her. They in this dream they're actually dating. They've been dating for a few weeks, but he can't make a move because look at that sunset.
Sunset's so beautiful every time. So they're on the beach and the sun is setting. It's really romantic, I suppose.
Yeah,
And he
yeah.
keeps looking at it, and every time he looks at it, he cries, right? Because he's so sensitive.
He's kind of dressed like a guy that would like be playing like acoustic guitar at like a college party, trying to like hook up with a chick. I don't know. I don't want to disparage any
He looks like a
musicians.
background character on Dawson's Creek or something.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Oh no, yeah, he does. He looks like he plays hacky sack on the weekends. But it's a funny.
He's kind of this sensitive hippie guy.
Yeah,
He's singing songs to her. He's writing poetry to her. Has all these drawings
you
he's
drew a
making of
picture of
her.
her.
Yeah, it's a really nice drawing too. And
And,
well, she loves him, but
but but exactly, and there's your twist. He's just too sensitive.
Mhm.
He's too damn sensitive. Like he's like there's these moments where they could be interacting or hooking up or something. And he can't get out of his own way because he feels so deeply about her.
She just wants to be with somebody who wants to get in her pants. And even though
Yeah,
he says he wants to get in her pants, I guess, he's just not, I guess, man enough, I suppose, for her. And she loves him, but
yeah.
that's not what she wants.
Another thing where it's great to have the coworkers as like these recurring characters when they come up and they're like kicking sand in his face, and then he's like, I want a guy like you said, a guy who just kind of wants to get in my pants. He's like, oh, that's me, and they just roll out. Even in that moment, Brendan Fraser, he's so upset that she's leaving, but then he gets another glimpse of that sunset.
Yeah, it's so funny. I love that sunset. That sunset is one of my favorite parts of the remake. Yesterday we had a big storm in Jersey. I
Yeah.
was walking with my wife, and I was like, "Look at that sunset." She's like, "What, are you gonna start crying now?" So she, referenced that movie. It's For me, it's one of my favorite moments in the movie. That sunset. When's that sun gonna set?
It's funny too. Again, from like a filmmaking perspective, whoever was the costume designer must have had so much fun with this film because you get to play out. It's the same guy, but playing different people, and you get to play out all these different scenarios and mess around with the looks and things like that. Not to detract for too long, but just the subtlety of just changing a few things about the outfits tells you this entire story, and each wish feels uniquely different in this film. So, edge to the remake. Well, man, they're both good scenes though. They're both good scenes. This may be the one time where I would say, we do have these quotable moments from the remake, but I think it's so funny in the original film. Like you said, when they get out of the car, get back into the car, there's some funny beats there. This one is the closest thing to like a push, maybe leaning towards the original, but it's close because that sunset line is so funny. Dude.
No, I hear what you're saying. It is pretty close to a push, but I have to go with the remake again. That sunset, every time that sunset, I was laughing so hard watching that scene. Just him as this ginger with his braces too.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, he committed, and I gotta give props to Brandon Fraser again, man. He is having so much fun, and it's so much fun to watch him as all these bizarre characters. And props to the remake.
Maybe by the end of this, you'll be as big a Brendan Fraser fan as I am. Yeah.
Well, we'll see how the other wishes pan out.
Yeah. Well, no, good wish. Yeah, just to make some tension in the podcast, I'm going with the original, but it's pretty damn close. It's pretty damn close. That's so funny.
All right, those are all the wishes that are pretty much the same or have something in common. After that, they start to deviate. So
Sure.
maybe we should get into a wish in the original that wasn't at all in the remake, like accidentally turning into a fly on the wall.
If I had to make a parallel, I think we'll talk about it from here, but there's one wish that I guess is kind of the equivalent, but not. I mean, it's not even that close. It's not. It's the president scene because like it's kind of like both are sort of accidents. But like the fly thing is like so clearly not what he wanted. It was weird the way they shot it too. Like I guess they had to almost make it like a cartoon.
Yeah.
With the flies. I wasn't a huge fan of that scene. I felt like it was a little long and there wasn't a great payoff because there's already sort of accidental wishes that are going on, and for him to be like a fly in the room. This is related to I'm glad we talked about that because this is related to that detective because he wants to be a fly so he can see if the detective is making a move on Margaret. It's flat for me, man. It's a flat scene. He's a fly. And they spray him with like bug spray, and he's struggling to do the raspberries because he has a fly mouth. It's a wish, but it just feels like such a throwaway for me. I don't know about you.
I don't know. I actually enjoyed it because there's just so many wishes you can do before the formula just starts getting old. So sure. I thought I appreciated them changing it up, making him a fly on the wall, and I thought it was interesting how they did it. Like you said, they drew it. It was animated, and then when he actually flew, it was the point of view from the fly. So it's this really cheap.
That is cool.
It was really cheap and cheesy, but I like that stuff. So I really appreciated that, and I needed something different because after a while, it's just like, oh, how is this wish gonna go bad? And just to make a bad wish, I thought I appreciated that, and I welcomed it. So I liked it enough.
No, I hear you. I think for me, I think most of the fun that I had with the film was sort of like between the margins, like the wishes or whatever. Like some of his sequences, when he's hanging out with the devil, when they're at the club and he's meeting like the I don't want to get too deep in this because I'm sure we'll talk about it, but when he's meeting sort of the seven deadly sins, that's where a lot of the fun in the original comes from me. I sort of like the like subtle, like almost pointless British humor that's happening throughout the film. The wishes, there's some funny moments that we talked about a little bit. This one, I agree that what it took to film it was interesting. I just wasn't that interested in the wish itself. It was one of my least favorites, but I totally get what you're saying, where at least something different happened here. It was probably the most unique wish in the entire film. Just not my favorite, personally.
that was your least favorite, and I guess that would lead to my least favorite wish in the remake, which was the Abe Lincoln wish.
Yeah,
That was my least favorite wish.
it
I don't know.
just
It didn't work for me. It's kind of a one note joke. I
yeah,
became Abe Lincoln. Oh, I'm gonna get shot, so I got to get out of here right away.
yeah,
And so once you figured out the joke, it was just like, well, okay, when's he gonna get out? And then it just ran a little long. Again, it's just like, how many of these wishes can you do? They were so clever, the
right.
first few. It does start to just drag on. It's kind of the same thing over and over again. So yeah, I get it, but it wasn't. At that
Nah,
point, you're just really tired and you kind of want to just get on with it.
yeah, it's like okay, I want to be president, and it's it's kind of like Brendan Fraser's most selfish wish to an extent, and there's some comedy that plays into it where Elizabeth Hurley like makes a joke that oh that's so selfless, like you want to be president so he can help people. We all know that ultimately he wants to just hook up with Allison. But you're right. Once it's like okay, I want to be president. Uh-oh, I'm Abe Lincoln. Whoops, like got it. And then you just have to watch the sequence play out. It was actually probably the exact wrong time for him to be like struggling to find his way out of the wish. So I guess they are kind of the parallels where the fly was an accident and he couldn't do the raspberries because he was a fly, and he eventually figured it out. In this case, he was Abe Lincoln by accident, and he couldn't figure out where his pager was because of his old timey outfit. Yeah, yeah, two of just the weakest sequences in both film. Well, excuse me, I'll go back. For me, weak in the first film, I think the way they filmed it was interesting, but I wasn't that interested in the wish. Similar for you here with the president, like it is a one note joke. It's like, wait, how long do we have to watch this when we ultimately know he's not gonna? Like we know he's not dying here because this is
Mhm.
not the end of his wishes, so
Yeah.
it's kind of pointless.
And the remake had been so clever up to that point too. Like you're trying to
Yeah,
figure out like okay, where's the twist? Where's the twist? And like that one you immediately knew. So
yeah,
yeah, at that point it was just like okay, so how long is this one going to go on for?
yeah.
So
It
yeah.
almost feels like sequencing wise, it probably should have been an early wish, just because I think that joke fits more if you don't quite understand the mechanics.
Yeah.
If that was kind of like Wish One, where he's like, "I'm the president," um, but oh, there's a twist. Like I think that joke works better early, whereas like this is fairly late in the film, and like we've seen him completely transform already, multiple times, and it's just like, all right, well, he's Abe Lincoln, which I also thought it wasn't. I guess the first person would have been sort of like Pablo Escobar, maybe, but it's ambiguous enough that
hmm
once it became a real historical figure, it was like, well, I know how this is going to end.
Yeah, it pulls you out of it.
But I guess we were saying those were different, but apparently being a fly and Abraham Lincoln were parallels. If you look at ultimately how both of them were struggling to get out of this accidental wish.
Yeah,
So I guess,
I'll take the that in that case I'll take the original because like you said, they did change it a little bit. He couldn't get out of the wish right away because he couldn't do the raspberries with his lips.
right.
And it was just like I said, it was different enough where it piqued my interest. It was like, "Ooh, this didn't happen in the remake." So,
Yeah, yeah.
let's see where this goes.
I can see that because it was I wasn't big on it, but it is a very unique sequence. So I am definitely going with that. Was way more interesting than him being Abe Lincoln, in
hmm
my opinion. So yeah, I'll give that wish if they are the equivalent. I think they are based on the fact they were struggling to get out of the wish. I guess they were the parallels there. I'm giving the nod to the original on that.
And then we have the final wish, or should we discuss the stolen wish? I guess we could call it. You already did a wish, your first wish, the first wish, maybe.
Yeah, I think because the endings are so different, I guess we should
hmm
kind of go back to the realization that these characters have already made a wish. At the beginning of the original, when George Spigot introduces himself as the devil, excuse me, Stanley Moon doesn't believe him, and he's like, "Well, if you don't believe me, make a wish." And he
Whoa,
asks
whoa,
for
whoa! First, he shows him a business card.
True.
And that was it. Well, that proves it.
There is that British humor. It's so dry. But yeah, he does give him a business card, and Stanley wishes for a Frobisher ice cream or Frobisher ice lolly, and they get on the bus. They go down to the local store. They get an ice lolly, and the devil doesn't have the money for it, so Stanley ends up paying for it, and it melts anyway because that didn't convince Stanley that that was the devil. So they had to like do a miracle. He like flew somewhere,
Yeah,
and
like
it melted the.
teleported really quickly. Or
It kind of funny. It's like, okay, you got this ice cream cone, and now you've teleported and it's gone. So complete waste of a first wish. You get a very similar sequence. I guess before he gets his first quote unquote fake wish, Brendan Fraser inserts himself into an outing with some of his coworkers that are being played throughout the film, and he's talking to Allison, and it's really awkward, like super awkward, like a lot of Brendan Fraser's conversations in this movie. He's talking about, we've worked together for a long time. She's never noticed him. It's a weird sequence.
he
And then
remembers like the last time they had a conversation, like the
it's like,
date and like exactly what the conversation was, and
like,
she's like, "What?" And like, yeah, it's
yeah.
just these super awkward things you shouldn't say to people.
And then he looks over and there's like Elizabeth Hurley playing pool, and she's like smoking hot, dude. Like it's a pretty cool sequence, and it makes you wonder at that point, like why he's even still thinking about Allison at that point.
I agree.
I thought that they would have sort of played into that where like the coworker saw that, maybe that would have put him over, quote unquote, with them. Yo, we saw you leave with that hot chick. What's her deal? And like that didn't really happen, which was strange to me. He meets the devil doing trick pool shots at the bar, and then when she says that she's the devil, he doesn't believe her, and they go to McDonald's so he can get it was a Big Mac with a Coke.
Large Coke or something, yeah. Do you want
And
fries with that? No. No fries.
Brendan Fraser's Elliot ends up paying for the burger, and he doesn't even get fries. It's a funny sequence. I thought that the intro to the devil was a lot more spectacular in the remake. She's on the pool table. She's like clearly like in a league of her own. She's doing trick shots. She's like got this sort of cool edge to her. It's kind of funny that this loser, at first he's like in awe of her, but like he kind of gets comfortable with her pretty quickly. For a guy that doesn't talk to women to be, talking to Elizabeth Hurley, he's doing pretty well with it.
I almost feel like it's a missed opportunity that he didn't try to like hook up with her. But then that
You
might
would
be
think,
like
right?
that might be too much because like if he's trying to hook up with this Allison, like how genuine is he if he's just already hitting on the devil? So
Yeah.
maybe it's better they didn't do that.
I think that the choices that they made worked, that he really didn't go after, but it's almost like, dude, like you got seven wishes, and for some reason they're still completely focused on this woman that you have like no real connection with.
You don't even
Well,
know, obviously.
clearly, Elizabeth Hurley is like, this is the most human interaction he's had in years, and he's just like, oh yeah, I'm friends with the devil. It's like, I don't know, there seems to be like some disconnect there, but it also does fit Brendan Fraser's character because he is more or less kind of a dummy. Sorry for the rant, but both of them wish for food items that they ended up paying for themselves, and that was the first wish of the seven, which was a nice little twist and reveal in both films that like, yeah, you already used one of your wishes, and they couldn't believe that counted as a wish.
It's pretty much the same thing, almost like beat for beat
Beef,
when it comes to
yeah.
the Wish. So I don't think the remake really did added anything new. It played fine, but
Yeah.
they didn't
I,
really do anything new with it.
I think the nod for me is gonna go to the original one because of just how dry and deadpan it is going up to it. And there's that added element of the lollipop, excuse me, the lollipop, the ice cream cone or whatever it is, melting as they like travel through space and time. That one little addition, that extra joke that they just eked out, I thought was pretty funny. I'm not even really sure how the burger resolved. It wasn't that interesting, whatever happened. But you're right. It's beat for beat, basically the same thing. one modernized with McDonald's. I'm giving the edge to the original film because there's a little bit of extra magic or whatever it is that you see afterwards. So
Yeah,
slight edge.
I understand. Yeah, I'd give it to the original too, just because the remake didn't add anything. All they did
Yeah,
was change, like you said, they just changed it to McDonald's. They just did a little advertising for you. That's all they
yeah,
did in the remake. So yeah, I would just give it to the original there. Easy.
yeah,
So that'll lead us to the final wish of each of our characters.
yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, which are very different from each other. This is where the movies really are different.
Veer wildly in completely different directions. Well, I mean, not in different directions. They're seemingly unrelated.
Yeah. So Stanley has a very specific wish to be in this loving relationship with Margaret. Just sort of the two of them. They're in love, and um, there's no other men or anything. It's it's oddly specific, just to be in love, right? Just the two of them, kind of alone, kind of isolated, sort of, right? Something like that.
Yeah, pretty much. They're like there's not these other factors that could potentially spoil the love. Like, yeah, he really dives in and tries to be as specific as possible here. Um, which
He did say I want to be white. I was like, oh,
yeah,
I don't
that's
know. I don't know
that.
if that ages well.
Oh, let me pull up my original note on that because the line is super specific. Young, white, and in good health.
Sure.
Yeah, yeah. Just like I wrote that down because, like you said, when I heard that line, I was like, "That's strange."
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
that's strange. I mean, he likes who he is. That's okay, I guess. He didn't say that being another color would be bad.
yeah, I, it's a weird line because it sort of takes you out of the fun. Like you said, I guess they're not really messing with like another like culture or race or anything, but it, why? It didn't really fit with anything else. Like I guess it's a funny line. Like I said, it doesn't really age well, but the joke that they get out of it, I don't think it's worth even going down that pathway. But it was strange, and we both made note of it. But I don't think it was the funniest line. It was a little strange, actually.
Yeah. Anyway, out of this joke, yeah, they're in love, but they're nuns, and
Yeah,
he's a woman, right?
Sister Luna,
Yes.
being Stanley Moon, as Sister Luna. This is by far the weirdest,
hmm
the weirdest scene between both films, and I don't know, like the nunnery that they're at, or the convent, or whatever it's supposed to be called, with the main, I guess, saint or nun that it's all based off of. Like the backstory is super crazy. I don't know if you have specific notes on it, but like the sister that flew to heaven or something like that. Oh, okay.
I don't know. I don't have that many notes on this.
I mean, for the audience, there's basically this backstory that their convent is based off of I don't remember her name, but it's like a sister who like ascended to heaven essentially, and people saw her flying to heaven basically. And there's all these goofy moments that are like alluding to it. They're jumping on trampolines and they're singing weird song, like goofy songs. It was so out of place. Like it felt like it was going in like Monty Python territory, and I just didn't really get how we got there.
Yeah, it got really silly. I guess they were just trying to, change what you thought the nuns did. And now nuns are on trampolines, so they're not just praying all the time. They do these weird things, and it definitely has a different tone from the previous, the whole movie. There's nothing like it,
There's nothing like it.
and it definitely is just one of those head scratches, like what's happening? Because not only is this a weird wish, but like the whole time Stanley is trying to do his mouth fart thing, and it's nothing's happening. He's
Yeah,
not.
and
He's stuck there.
they don't explain it either.
No, they don't explain it. So the whole, but it is kind of funny. Like, I appreciated that because you do see him kind of going through his day as a nun, and the whole time,
Yeah,
like out of nowhere, he just keeps going, and everybody looks at him like, "What? He's what?
yeah.
What? Nothing,
Yeah,
nothing to see here." So Dudley Moore
it's
has a
taking
funny beat there, but every time he did that, I was laughing. But
yeah,
it is in a bizarre, this weird nun world that you're not
yeah,
really prepared for.
yeah. It's just it's pretty funny at first because they've taken on an oath of silence. A lot of the dialogue is actually like inner dialogue, but
Which was
Mark,
confusing to me because Margaret's there, they're both nuns, and they're able to communicate through sort of telekinesis.
yeah,
They were having conversations, and I was like, what? So again, it's the whole movie is like sort of playing based in reality this whole
mhm.
time, and then you take into this weird convent where all the rules are kind of flipped around, and now these people are communicating with their minds. It was bizarre.
It was strange, and Stanley is afraid of heights, so the trampoline scene, which is kind of funny because everyone else is like jumping as high as they can to show their faith, and he's just kind of like struggling on this trampoline. But there's like a weird song about like jumping for sister, whatever. It's just such a again odd sequence that it took me out of the film a little bit because yes, there were strange things happening throughout the film, like the seven deadly sins. The Raquel Welch scene was, it was odd and stuff like that, and there were weird moments throughout the film for sure, but nothing that was just like overtly silly.
hmm
And it went on for some time as well, and I just didn't get how it fit into the big picture.
Yeah, the humor had been pretty clever up till that point, and then,
Yeah.
like you said, it just became silly. It was just
Mhm.
like almost like they just said, "Hey kids, what would be funny at a convent? What do you think would be funny to see nuns do?"
Yeah, like
It
nuns.
wasn't as clever anymore all of a sudden.
If I recall, his raspberries aren't working. Doesn't he end up going to like the club
hmm
where the devil was? Yeah,
Yeah, he and he's still a woman too.
yeah, yeah.
So
So
it's really weird this wish.
he's trying to go into the club and like he like punches out the bouncer and like someone sees him and it's a whole thing because like there's a nun like punching a guy like the whole sequence is very very strange to say the least. But
Yeah.
uh,
Well, there's definitely no wish like that in the remake.
not close.
No, the final wish in the remake, of course, is I guess I'll set it up because the devil really wants Elliot to make this final wish. He wants that soul. Elliot's like, no, I'm done. I'm not. These wishes suck. They never go the
Yep.
way I want. I don't like this. I'm done. I'm just not gonna do it. She's like, you have to do it. It's in the contract. You signed that contract. You better do this wish. Like I
Right.
said, she like becomes threatening. She gets in a big bikini for some reason.
Yeah.
Not sure. And then at this moment,
I think it
uh,
could be a Kel Welch reference.
it could be, yeah, it could be a
I
little
think so.
nod to that.
Mhm.
But then, and in that moment, that final moment when he has to make a wish, he just wishes for Allison to be happy. The devil sighs, and the contract is null and void because he made a selfless wish.
Right, which no one ever reads the contract,
I
so that was it.
guess that was an okay way to sort of get out of it.
I think that from the perspective of like wrapping up a film and sort of sticking along the lines of what I think we're used to when it comes to like a story arc, I think that sequence makes a little bit more sense for the viewer. It it's still again when we talk about universe building, it's in line with everything we've seen before. All these wishes weren't really selfless, and he's making a choice for someone else. So okay, I could see that being the thing that gets you out of the contract. Whereas in the original film, the devil's just kind of like, I'm good.
Yeah. The
I'm gonna
devil.
show, I'm gonna show God that I've changed my ways or that I'm a good guy by giving Stanley his soul back.
Was that even it, or was it okay? Because let's talk a little bit about the motives. The devil in the original, the devil's really obsessed with God. Like, the devil's kind of upset that they used to be Lucifer, this God's favorite angel, and now they have to be the devil. So
Right.
the whole movie, the devil keeps talking to Stanley, saying, "I'm in this competition with God, seeing who can get the most souls." I forgot the specific number. It might have been 1 billion souls or something.
Something like that.
Something like that. Whoever can get this many souls first wins. And pretty much Stanley happens to turn on the devil when he's pretty close to beating God. And
Mhm.
ultimately, the devil does win. And he's so happy and elated. And he's got all his souls. And now he can go back and. Because he doesn't want to be the devil anymore. He wants to be God's favorite angel again. And he thinks
Right.
by getting all these souls, he can win God's favor again. So he's so happy about it. He's like, "I'm going to let you go, Stanley. I got plenty of souls." So Stanley's like, "All right, fine, great. Here's your contract. Just burn it up and be on your way. I'm gonna go back live with God."
Mhm.
And but little twist on the devil, because now he doesn't get to live with God because he gave Stanley his soul back for the wrong reasons. So the devil's like, "Oh no, what do I gotta do?" We'll give it to him for the right reasons. So since now the devil wants to get Stanley's soul back and give it back to him, but it's too late at that point, and the
Right.
devil gets his comeuppance.
You get this voiceover God that just sort of he's an imposing figure that you can't see, and he just kind of ends up just laughing at the devil. Like, I mean, that's it. Like, he just laughs at him because he thought he got one over on God, but it turns out that he didn't really understand the mechanics. So it, it it is a funny sequence to have the devil trying to get Stanley's soul back when you really think about the context of how unimportant Stanley Moon is in the grand scheme of things.
Mm,
He's sort of picked because he's nobody. And it's just funny to see the devil staking his entire sort of like future on this one guy who's basically just going to go back to his life as a short order cook. Fun enough sequence. Like I said, when you're coming out of that nun scene, I don't think they necessarily wrapped it up clean,
mm,
but it was a ride. We took the ride. Um, I gotta lean towards the remake because they at least introduce a concept that adequately gets us out of the wish cycle.
mm,
Instead of the devil just being like, yeah, all this was kind of for fun. Here's your soul bag. I got other matters to attend to. It kind of cheapens the experience that you've gone throughout because it didn't really matter whether or not he took Stanley's soul in the end of the day. It was kind of like if it fit the character because it was so arbitrary. But when you're talking about a film, you usually want stakes, so it's a little arbitrary for him to just give the soul back.
yeah. And I think you kind of touched on this earlier. It gives in the remake, then Elliot has more of a character arc, right? He's making all
Yeah.
these selfish wishes, and he
Right.
finally learns like, oh, it doesn't isn't working, so I'll do a selfless wish. And
Mhm.
Stanley doesn't really have that moment. He's selfish all the way to the end.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I'm not a big fan of it because the devil also mentions nobody has ever done this before, like billions of souls, and Elliot. This Elliot guy really is the first one, so that irked me a little bit. But
Yeah.
I guess it made more sense than the original. The original just seemed kind of like, oh, I've got plenty of souls, you can have yours back. It's like, what? just that like that? I don't
Just like
know.
that.
It seemed too easy in the original. At least there was a little bit more thought in the remake.
Yeah.
He had to be a little more clever. Again, outsmart the devil, I guess. And Stanley never had a moment like that. At least
Right.
Elliot kind of does. So as
Yeah.
much as I think it's a little weak, but it's stronger than the original.
I think so. It is weak. It's kind of cliche,
Hmm.
but it is an arc,
Yeah.
So you have to give the nod there. I personally, in both movies, like I guess the God characters in both films, I could take it or leave it. I think in the remake, it's just I don't know, like maybe they have some like overarching message that like a higher power like God can be in places you're not expecting it. So like for um, Elliot to have met God or whatever that one character was, to have met him in prison when things are going so bad and he's at this low point for himself, and he meets this African American gentleman with braids, and it's like he he's seemingly this benevolent guy who he has that moment like, who are you? He's like, I'm just a friend. It, I think it's trying to make a statement that I don't think the movie needs to make.
Yeah.
So I was a little thrown off by it, and it also isn't well explained. Like I guess they're implying that that character is God that Brendan Fraser meets in prison after he kind of loses it. I don't know. I guess it's better than just a faceless voice. Both of them, I don't know. I could take it or leave it.
No, I hear what you're saying. I guess I did have a little issue with the remake because he does go on to say like, "I gave my soul to the devil." Well, that's your first mistake. Soul's not yours to give. So that confused me because I was like, so would he not lose his soul
Right.
if he went through all these seven wishes? Sort of gave me some more questions that I didn't realize I had to have answered. So it was just confusing to have that guy there. He didn't really.
It
I don't know
doesn't
if
add.
I don't know what he did really to.
Doesn't
Yeah, to add to the story, or
doesn't add anything.
was he the reason that Brendan Fraser made that selfless wish at the end? I don't know. I guess you're supposed to think that, but he never really implies
It doesn't
like he'd
feel
been
like it.
what?
It doesn't feel like it though. It
No,
doesn't.
because what he was talking about wasn't about being selfless. It was just kind of soul and ownership of it, and just
Right.
careful about the devil. I don't know. It wasn't about being a better person per
No.
se.
No.
So I don't know. It did seem a little unnecessary. And I feel like you could pretty much have the movie without him.
You
I,
could
I don't
certainly have.
think you need
Uh,
him at all. But I think God's more important in the original because that's the devil's motivation. So even though he is just a voice, which reminded me of Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, where God's just
yeah.
a voice, which I like. So I'll give God the original God a little bit of an edge there.
I think so too. Just because he actually, it's implied, not even implied. Like he goes to heaven. St. Peter's there, and he's like, "Get out of my way! I got business to." It's a fun sequence. The sort of goofy laughter at the end, I wasn't a huge fan of from the God character, but like it made sense. Like the devil in the original film has business to attend to with God, whereas Elizabeth Hurley doesn't have anything that she needs
Nope.
to do with God at all. I guess other than play chess, like we're watching, like
At the end of the movie. Yeah, and then it also makes sense too because like God kind of plays the devil the way the devil's been playing Stanley the whole time. It's sort of yeah, like I said before, he gets his comeuppance. Like this whole time you've been tricking people. Well, here's a little twist for you, sir. So
yeah,
he's definitely more necessary in the original than he is in the
yeah,
remake.
yeah. It just feels thrown in there. He doesn't do much, like other than that one sequence where he's talking to him and he's like, "You can't give away your soul," and then they have this like seventh seal moment where they're playing chess with each other. And then there's this knowing like smirk that both of them give. Hey, you go, Elliot. It's kind of fucking goofy,
Yeah,
man.
it was kind of cheesy and definitely unnecessary.
What do you think about like the true endings after that too? Because
Right, right. Yeah, let's go there.
I'm just thinking about the original where Margaret kind of like nothing happens really.
Yeah. Well, he finally, after all the wishes are done, Stanley just finally has the courage and asks out Margaret, and she just says, nah, I'm kind of busy right now." So
Yeah,
it doesn't go anywhere, which I kind of like because it's like, oh, I went through all this thing, so surely if I ask her out now, she'll say yes. That's kind of the cliche. That's like the
right.
obvious way to go. So to her just to say no, but at least you have Stanley just finally manning up and just I
Yeah,
don't need these wishes. I'm just gonna do it myself. So I understood that. And yeah, you
Yeah,
don't need the cliche ending of, oh yeah, that's all they needed to do the whole time.
right. And it's kind of cool because like it's like the door's not completely like shut on him.
Yeah.
There's still maybe this maybe later element to it.
Hmm.
So it seems that the character is now just enough where like he'll be able to accept whatever fate it is. But I agree with you that I think it's better that just because he went on this entire journey independent, let's call it what it is, independent of the love interest, his learning about himself doesn't change his situation. And I think that it's cool that he now has the tools to maybe have a relationship with her or someone else potentially.
Hmm.
Um, I do like that they don't just say, "Hey, we're hooking up now." I think you're right that the movie is served better to end with that. I think that that's just better for the film in general.
Yeah, and then we have the remake, which kind of follows it at first. Elliot finally just has the courage and goes up to Allison and asks her out. But she's not busy, but she does have a boyfriend, which is
Right,
weird because Stalker Elliot earlier said that she had broken up with her boyfriend. I guess he hadn't gone through her mail lately or something. I don't
right.
know. But she's in a relationship and she can't date him, and he seems okay with it.
Yep,
But then he realizes he has a new neighbor,
right.
and she looks exactly like Allison.
Yeah.
And then they start to date.
It's just I, that's a bad ending.
It's a cop out. It's a huge cop out.
It's a bad ending because it's a cop out, but when you really dive down into it, like it shows that he really truly hasn't learned anything
Hmm.
because Allison, again, like we said with the two main love interests, I feel if the movies maybe had dove into them and gave them more character, we would be okay with this. But she's always been an empty vessel.
Hmm.
We've traded her out for different looking Allisons throughout the film. So he didn't get to hook up with Allison from work, but now there's just another quote unquote Allison. And what does it tell us about, you know, um, women in this universe, or at least in Brendan Fraser's orbit? They're interchangeable. It was never about Allison to begin with.
No.
So it's like stake your entire like soul on this woman that you are willing to trade out at moment's notice. I think I get what the movie was trying to do. It was trying to have this like Hollywood. Oh, I guess it all worked out, but I think in the context of what we saw, this is not a good ending.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. It's Elliot comes across so shallow. Uh,
It's
like
bad.
yeah, like you said, this whole movie, he was gonna give up his soul for this one woman, right? This one woman that supposedly the one
Got to
woman,
be her.
the love of his life or something. But no, he wasn't in love with her. He was just in love, I guess, with the idea of her. And as long as he
Right.
can find someone that kind of looks like her, he can be happy that way. And now,
That's
watching it the first time, that always was just like, ah, man, I don't like this ending at all. It was just terrible.
yeah. I mean, the first time I saw it, I don't even think I even really like paid attention to that. It was just kind of like because the ending, even without getting into like the deeper meaning, the ending is like whatever. Got your soul back. Hey, you met another girl. Like it's fine, Hollywood shit. But like when you really sort of break down what we're supposed to be doing as an audience and the lesson that I believe the main character is supposed to be learning, it's clear that he learned nothing at all. So
Yeah, it's almost like another wish. Almost like I wish Allison was my neighbor. It's kind of what he could have just done, and that would have kind of
yeah,
been the ending. Yeah, he didn't want to learn who she was as a person, or even be willing to wait in case this relationship is over. Like this is supposed to
right.
be the one you were going to sell your soul for, and you're able to settle for somebody that kind of looks like her.
Yeah,
It's
it's like, oh,
it,
you look like her, so that makes you her. Like that, that's bad, man.
no, I definitely like Stanley asking her out, Margaret, and then just getting a no and just being okay with it. Yeah, okay, I did it, and
Yeah.
I can wait if she's not busy. Then I'll be ready for her.
Right.
But I don't understand why they had to change the ending because
I just
the first
yeah,
ending was fine.
yeah, it is fine, and they were there with this new film as well. And it was like maybe there's a sequence there where maybe he's kind of like struts off confidently. It's like with this knowing that what, yeah, if it doesn't work out,
Hmm.
come see me. And like you could literally just have him walk off there, smile towards the camera, and like roll the credits.
Yeah.
But to have this in the last like minute of the movie, introduce another character that looks like her, and then say good enough like that. It just the message that they're giving about I guess you have to say it, about women, it's not a good one
No, it is not. It,
because not that one. Okay, there's someone that looks just like her. Same thing. It's like it truly shows that he never knew anything about Allison,
no.
nor did he care. Clearly,
In defense of the remake, it could be a studio note. They could have been like, it might have had the original ending where he was just like, all right, I'm fine with her not wanting to be with me, and maybe the studio was like, whoa, 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 we want him to have a happy ending. Think
yeah,
of something, because it definitely, you could just end the movie with her just saying no
yeah,
and him just walking and just kind of smiling to himself like, all right, I did it.
yeah.
But and then this last scene, it just, oh man, you do not need that in the movie at all.
Like I said, maybe they did some test runs and
Yeah.
audiences weren't satisfied with how it ended.
I don't know how this would leave them satisfied though. It's like,
I
it's
I don't know. I guess boy meets girl, guy gets girl, but it's a different girl. Like it's
no.
I don't know. Not a great choice.
It's, but you have to end it somehow. If
Yeah,
that's the worst part of the movie, then it's not that bad, I guess.
yeah.
Let's actually talk about Raquel Welch, because we had mentioned her a couple of times. Why do we keep mentioning Raquel Welch? Well, because in the original movie, we actually have some characters that are not in the remake. We have the Seven Deadly Sins, and Raquel Welch plays, of course, Lust.
Yes.
Yes.
Raquel Welch is one of your sort of like original quote unquote bombshell actresses. Like she very famous for just being would say she was very famous for being sexy.
Yeah.
That was kind of her thing. There's an interesting sequence in the original Bedazzled where Stanley meets Lust and he's in bed and she shows up and is tempting him, and he's realizing that the physical side of the relationship with what's her name, Margaret, like I think it kind of leads him to want to get more like intimate with her.
Hmm.
But throughout the film, like you said, Anger is the bouncer at the club. Sloth is a lawyer who has to sign for Stanley's soul. There's a bunch of different interactions with the seven deadly sins portrayed by different actors throughout the film, which you don't get that at all in the remake. You get the
Uh,
club in both films though.
you do get the club, and that's where he meets these seven deadly sins. So, what did you think about that? That we have seven deadly sins, and what did you think about their omission in the remake?
I think for the remake, it's, they didn't need it.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think they
Even
needed it at all.
the original film, it's a touch. I mean, it's not necessary. It's not doesn't take away from the film. The Raquel Welch scene is kind of just like shoehorned in there.
Yeah.
It's not really necessary, but hey, I'm glad that they. It was just like you could tell it was like one of those guys, or maybe both those guys, was like, hey, we can get Raquel Welch to our movie. It's like, yeah, definitely, bro. Like, let's do it. Like that's how it feels. It doesn't really add to the story by any stretch.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it barely motivates Stanley a little bit in one of his wishes, the lust one.
Mhm.
And Raquel Welch is very memorable in her scene.
Yes.
She's in the movie, I think, for somewhere between 7 and 11 minutes, but she obviously looks good in that bikini, so they're gonna put her on that movie poster.
Mhm.
But yeah, you definitely didn't need her, or you didn't need them in the remake. I mean, Lust is the most memorable of the Seven
Right.
Deadly Sins for me, and you already have Liz Hurley just looking really good in all those different outfits, so you didn't need another
Nah. I
female
think
in the movie to
I
do
think
that.
that may have even have been part of the casting choice. I think that
Yeah.
even though she's barely in the original film, Raquel Welch is heavily featured in the sort of advertising for it, the marketing for it. The movie is literally Bedazzled featuring Raquel Welch. Elizabeth Hurley was essentially the Raquel Welch of our day, like of our time. She was this bombshell actress. So I think it was actually kind of smart and cool to blend that character in that way. And I think it's one of the strong points of the remake that they were able to sort of make that homage while also blending it in with the devil character. Smart stuff because it's both an allusion to the first film and something that makes this remake completely unique.
Like you said, they used Raquel Welch in a lot of the advertising for the film. Like even when I saw pictures of the original, I thought Raquel Welch was gonna be the devil just because I had never seen the original. So it was, yeah, it was smart for the remake to just be like, well, let's just make the hot one the devil. That way
Yeah,
people won't feel gypped because I'm sure there was people that were like, whoa, let's see Raquel Welch in here, and then she was in there for less than 10 minutes.
yeah. I think the way the remake handles the storyline, I think that it would have created confusion
Hmm.
to add like another hot person. You know, had like the devil had been like, let's just say some guy, and there was a scene with like Elizabeth Hurley, I think it would have really hurt the film. I don't think that they would have been able to justify having like just one random scene with another woman that just happens to be attractive.
Yeah.
Uh, it, even in the original film, it's an aside. I mean, it
Hmm.
doesn't truly further the plot. It's a big deal for that time frame that woman's in the movie, but it doesn't really help the plot in any real meaningful way. So a good omission and actually a nice blending that we see in the remake. I think great casting choice.
Yeah, because you already in the remake you already have Allison, who's a love interest. You have Liz Hurley. It's like
Mhm.
to add a third sort
That
of
would be
potential love interest, it would just be too much. So
way
it's
too
good to
much.
consolidate, just combine lust and the devil, and they did it great in the remake. Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool that there are characters that portray the seven deadly sins, but they do so little throughout the
Hmm.
film that it's
Yeah.
again, it's an aside. Like, do we need a lawyer to play sloth to like slowly sign a contract? Do we need like this temptation scene with lust? Not at all. It's a good omission. It's fine that it was in the first film because the first film is its own unique thing, and I think kind of a sign of that time. But the remake does a lot of smart streamlining throughout that gives it a nice little modern edge to it.
I think it would have been interesting if each of the seven deadly sins influenced a wish. Then it
That
would
would
have
have
been
been
a little more necessary to have them. But since they're mostly background characters, and I think really only lust influences his wish,
right.
maybe envy at the end, but I didn't,
Maybe
maybe,
it,
but
you're right because it would have been smart if like maybe there was a wish based on like anger, like maybe
yeah.
anger kind of roughs him up in the club, and he's like, man, I wish like I could be a tough guy, so that
Yeah.
wouldn't happen.
Hmm.
Like that type of stuff. I think you're right. That would have been interesting and would have given more weight to the wishes because the wishes at the end of the day are on both films mostly arbitrary. There's no real rhyme or reason to them. Um, they're kind of the normal things that people would wish for: wealth, rich and famous, athletic. But they're not really tied into like these themes that you're talking about,
Yeah.
the big sins.
Looking at my list, I think we covered everything.
Yeah. The one thing I will say
Okay.
that this is not a big thing at all, but in the sensitive scene with the sunset, did you catch the name of the dogs that
Oh, yes.
Peter and Dudley? I thought that was a nice touch.
Yeah, that was nice.
Yeah, sure. I was also reading up on that scene you said was cut. Sounds crazy. I wish that was still in there.
Which one? The
The
Rockstar
Rockstar
one?
scene?
Yeah, I remember watching the deleted scene years ago. I was gonna watch it for this, but I didn't.
It's probably on YouTube.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it is.
Cool.
All right,
Well,
so should we give our final verdict?
yeah.
All right, Reggie, this is it. Verdict time. Should they have made this remake?
Oh, I think that they should have made this remake. It stands on its own, enough allusions to the original film, but it's doing its own thing. Brendan Fraser, who obviously I'm clearly a fan of for some reason. Um, Gets to show off his acting chops, and I think this is actually one of his stronger films. Looking back in that era, and Elizabeth Hurley is just she plays it perfect. I mean, she does the humor really well, and she does the Elizabeth Hurley thing where she's like she's hot. She's hot as fuck, bro. Like that's so true. But at the same time, like she still has the acting ability and holds her own against Peter Cook, in my opinion. You know, which is not a small statement to say. So at the end of the day, I think the film should have been made. I like both films. I'm more partial to the remake, maybe because of the modern twist to it. And I just remember watching it, a couple times growing up. So it was a fun film, and I enjoyed it. What about you?
Yeah, I think we said this before. When it comes to remakes of comedies, it's really not that difficult. You follow the storyline, but you have to update the jokes. And
Mm,
it's exactly what this remake did. It definitely made it its own. You have, like you said, your boy Brendan Fraser. He definitely had fun during this movie. It really picks up when that first wish. And once Brendan Fraser is that Colombian drug lord, he's having so much fun. You can't
yeah,
help but have fun. And then it keeps going with the next wish when he's the sensitive ginger. It's really fun just watching him have fun with all these different characters. And like you said, Liz Hurley, she's just it was perfect casting as her. She's very seductive. It's kind of what you want in the devil. It's seductive, but there's something wrong that you shouldn't, but you want it.
right, right.
So it was great casting. Not nothing against the original. I thought Dudley Moore and Peter Cook were great too. I just think, as an American, the humor just plays a little bit more to me in the remake, and it's just updated just from '60s humor, which,
Sure.
of course, comedy has, grown since
Comedy
then.
has
Yeah.
vastly evolved.
Yes.
But, I will say that because at the end of the day, we're not knocking the original. I think
No.
the original is a very strong film. It's funny. There a lot of the beats because I was watching with my fiance, and there were some moments that were like, she was like, okay, what's this? But like, we were laughing. We were laughing while we were watching it. So I think it holds up pretty well. But there's just some strange British humor in there that I don't think a lot of audience today are going to get. Definitely worth a watch because overall it's a very funny film. But there's some head scratchers throughout it that maybe that's just time or maybe that's a cultural thing. But Brendan Fraser and his brand of comedy, I'm a little more partial to.
It's really great just concept, this idea of just getting wishes from the devil and then everything just not going the way you want. I wouldn't be surprised if they made a remake of this in very soon because like it's such a great concept and you can have a lot of fun with
So
it.
fun.
It's
So
easy to make it your own.
yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised if there was future remakes of this.
I wouldn't be surprised, and I probably wouldn't be upset because I don't
No.
think there's anything that when I'm watching these two films, I wouldn't see anything as like sacrilege. Like, oh, you can't replace Brendan Fraser and Elizabeth Hurley. I'm sure you can. Like they both did a great job. I thought the casting was excellent in both films. But like, I wouldn't be upset if someone took another crack at it because it is a fun story. And it'd be interesting to see someone else's take on the wishes.
Yeah,
It's really what
absolutely.
makes these movies shine.
Yeah, it's both movies are really fun. So if you haven't seen either one, do yourself a favor. Definitely go check them out.
Yeah, yeah. I would say that this may be the most positive that I can remember being feeling about both movies.
Yeah, I'm
You
right
know,
there with you. Yeah, they
so
were because the remake didn't really deviate too far. It followed the same formula and it just
yeah,
updated the jokes and the wishes, and that's all you really needed.
yeah.
And
It
having Liz Hurley as the devil does not hurt at all.
was not hurt. Oh my god, the scene where she's whoever's parents these were super cool. The scene where she's the teacher at the school.
Oh yes, yes.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's
Mhm.
stuff of legends.
Something about a spanking? Yes, of
Yep.
course. Very good
No
stuff.
homework. All right.
All right. Well, that was another episode.
Hell yeah. This is the part where you break out your list, right?
All right, we got to figure out what we're doing next. Let's take a look. See, 12 Angry Men, 101 Dalmatians, 310 to Yuma, Amityville Horror, Angels in the Outfield, Bad News Bears. Maybe stay away from some humor. And do some like horror or something.
We could do horror.
How about Manchurian Candidate?
I was gonna say something like that, maybe like some sort of like mystery or thriller or something like that.
Want to try Manchurian Candidate?
Yeah, is that the one with Frank Sinatra?
I don't know. I know the remake had Liv Shriver in it.
Ah, Shriver, Sabretooth.
Yeah, Sabretooth.
Yeah, you know what? Manchurian Candidate, it is.
All right, cool. This because I've never really heard much about the remake, so we'll see if they should have remade it.
Well, that's another one in the books, as they say. My name's Reggie Parker. You can find me at Twitter and Instagram at RP Comedy, or you can check out my website, rpcomedy.com.
And I'm Dan Bulick. You can find me on Twitter at Console Wars Guys, or on YouTube, youtube.com/Console Wars. Retro gaming goodness. All right, and this has been another episode of Retro versus Remake.